Avengers! Assemble.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. I'm your director, Christian Buckley, as always. Joining me is the Apex legend, Jack Martin.
Excelsior. Good to be back, Christian.
Yes, I feel like we've said that at the beginning of most episodes lately because the schedule's been so irregular. That is mostly my fault. Sorry, but I'm happy to be here and talk to you on this episode's got weird energy, I think, going into it because of the past 24 hours in gaming, as well as this game is beginning to be eulogized. But how are you doing? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yeah, I feel like our last 3 episodes have been Halloween, Thanksgiving, and now Christmas or the holiday season. But that's great. I'm doing quite well. I usually don't have like external Marvel stuff going on, but I recently did a replay of Miles Morales.
Nice.
For the holiday season. Great game. I'm still of the opinion now definitively that I like Spider-Man 2018 more. I think the Miles story is kind of bland. Like the overarching like Troy Baker villain stuff and like the Tinkerer, I don't really like all that stuff. But Miles and like Genki and all that is like fantastic. So it's a really great game. Just the story itself is like fine. But yeah.
Where do you land on that game's length? Because, I mean, Spider-Man 2 is next year. We've been kicking around some ideas. I'm sure we're going to talk about these games a lot in the future. But, because personally, I preferred the pacing of Miles Morales. So, like, if Spider-Man 2 can, like, tighten things up a little bit, I'd be a big fan of that. But I'm curious how you feel about the runtime of that game.
I agree. I love a good short game these days, especially. And I think that's like, 8 hours maybe?
I think so.
It's like a Call of Duty campaign. Compared to like the usual 20-hour experience that most games are these days that are like, those types of action adventure games. So yeah, I mean, I would love for PlayStation to do hey, here's our really big game in the franchise, and then here's like our smaller scale game, and we're gonna keep that cadence going so we can release more games. I'm all for that. I know Sean Layden wanted to do that when he was in charge.
What a king.
Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah.
That was it, man. Like Uncharted Lost Legacy, like Miles Morales, like those are kind of see where they were going with those.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of PlayStation, remember when people thought Ragnarok was going to be a small game and it's like 6 times the length of 2018?
Yes, it's significantly bigger.
Yeah, but
yeah, what have you been up to?
Just work stuff. I'm watching a lot of things on Netflix. I started rewatching The Witcher because the next gen version's out next week, and I enjoy the show. And Henry Cavill's got one more season, so wanted to get back in there. It's still fun. It's still a very stupid, good vibes show if you like that universe. And Henry Cavill, I think, does a really good job as Geralt. Beyond that, I watched all of Wednesday. Was a big fan of that. But yeah, not much other Marvel stuff really lately. Just literally everything else. A lot of DC talk going on. A lot of Star Wars stuff. But
yeah, how does it feel to be a part of Jedi Knights, a podcast where you have a video game to look forward to?
Well, let me tell you, Jack, it feels wonderful because that game looks wonderful.
So. It looks so fantastic. I mean, like the upgrades to now dual wielding lightsabers now, seemingly having a blaster at your side.
It looks polished,
Yeah, right. It looks like the game runs well.
Yeah, it's got like a sheen to it, but like in a good way, not really how like in some instances. And I love Fallen Order, but like in some instances, it's got like a sheen of like, all right,
Oh yeah, no, I get it. And Fallen Order, I also loved, and it's probably somewhere in my top 50. But it really shouldn't be because I had so many issues with it, especially like performance-wise. It played horribly on my base PS4. So I'm just excited for this game to run well.
Yeah, I think I'm with you in the same amount of like adoration for that game. And I look at Spider-Man very similarly, where Spider-Man got the one most important thing right the same way I think Fallen Order got the most important thing right, where it's like it feels like what you want it to feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Where Spider-Man was like, I don't think they did really much exciting. I think they did a lot of stuff great. Fallen Order, I kind of feel similar, where like I'd give both of those games like high eights, but both their sequels could be in my top 10 if I'm being
For
real.
sure.
So excited for that. But you know what game isn't in my top 10, Jack?
What's that?
Marvel's Avengers. It's in my top 10 playtime on my PS5. I know that. Like,
Yeah.
pretty
Ooh.
easily.
I wonder. It's like pretty up there in the past couple of generations for me, for sure.
Yeah. So respect, but there's some conversations we have to start having about this game, and they all start today. Before any of that, though, business as usual. Let's get into Furious Report. Triple XP is running currently for Captain America and the Winter Soldier. That's two characters at once until December 15th, because Winter Soldier dropped since the last time we spoke. I haven't played him. Have you?
No. And there's a high possibility I never will, as I mentioned to you before the show.
Yes. Now, I'm not going to make any definitive claims because, again, I haven't played him, but some of those attacks looked familiar to me as somebody who has leveled Captain America up to 50.
Seems like a Cap clone in a way.
Yeah.
Damn.
So,
That's too bad.
really is, but, some of those guns looked cool from some of the clips I've seen, so.
Yeah, the guns look cool. For sure. The ranged aspect of his character looks fun.
Cosmic Threat is the event in the game currently that is running until December 22nd. The current shipment skin in the game is for the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes' White Wolf outfit, described as a gift from his Wakandan allies, T'Challa and Shuri. That is going to be the shipment suit until January 6th. Uh-oh. Shipments cost... I just wanted to keep rolling with it, but then, I had to stop.
Sometimes you just forget about these dates and it's like, oh, yeah, something really catastrophic happened that day.
Little Christmas is what happened that day. Shipments cost 250 units to claim, and the marketplace is also running a special on Captain America, including a new outfit. Jack, let me hear a little bit about this little fit that Steve Rogers has.
Yes, it's very good. This is Captain America's cell shaded outfit, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like his classic comic book appearance, and it's the cell shaded. If you played Batman Arkham City and you messed around with the animated Batman skin, that's what it looks like. It pops from the world. Like, it doesn't look like it fits in. It's very much like different animation style, but it looks pretty great. I'm glad this exists. And honestly, I'm surprised it took this long
Yeah,
to get in there.
yeah,
You know?
I agree. I'm curious if the other Avengers will get this treatment. I would like them to. I think that'd be nice, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I will say, and we've had this conversation before, I think when the Fortnite event was going on, like the original Galactus one. I am so frustrated that gamers are scared of artistic choices because I wish this game just looked like this, you know? Because I think that would have
Ooh.
helped some of the technical issues if it was just stylized, you know? Speaking of Fortnite, seeing what they did with Unreal 5 with that new update is wild. Need for Speed Unbound came out recently and they implemented cel shaded characters in a realistic world, and I think it worked for that game. I was underwhelmed by like the level of which they committed to it, but I just wish an Avengers game with the budget that this one had looked like that, because I feel like that would have helped some of the content issues and focus of things, you know.
Yeah, and you make a good point. And Avengers has never been a pretty game. Even like when it was first announced, everyone was like, "Ooh, this just does not look great." And maybe that's has a lot to do with the characters, but that's a good point. I feel like if you have a bunch of cel shaded Spider-Man Ultimate, what was that video game?
Ultimate
Ultimate
Spider-Man, yeah.
Spider-Man. Yeah, looking like that. I mean, that would certainly be That'd be a very interesting choice
Yeah.
in a Elseworlds Marvel's Avengers
You
situation.
also would have avoided. This looks like dollar store Chris Evans.
Yeah, because you could just have your characters look like the comic
Yeah,
characters.
but I understand AAA brings a big expectation, and gamers don't like when things don't look like themselves in a mirror and they can see the pores on their characters. That's what really brings quality. Speaking of issues with the game, this game's notable leaker, Miller, put out a big, interesting, exclusive write up report on Xputer. Have you heard of Xputer before?
No, I have not.
So this was 2 days ago. December 7th was the last update of this article. I'm going to read a couple portions of here. I recommend reading it because Miller has done God's work with this game in terms of marketing, communication, and setting expectations. But it gives us a bit of an insight into the current state of Avengers and the future or lack thereof for this game. The first thing I'd like to do is hop down a little low in this write up to talk about something that I believe happened in our gap. Brian Wagner, who stepped in after War for Wakanda, I believe, as the game director lead for Marvel's Avengers, kind of got shoved under the rug from Crystal Dynamics because very recent tweets popped up that were pretty homophobic, pretty racist, and still on Twitter. And when I say recent, I mean like this was like 2020 stuff. So, not a good look.
I didn't realize it was that recent. Wow.
Yep. Quite
Yikes.
recent. So Wagner came on as the director. Like I said, previously worked on Marvel Heroes Omega, which is a sweet ass game that got shut down. So I had faith because of that track record, and then we've seen how the game has progressed since then, in that it really hasn't. Outside of a couple clone characters and the recent cloning lab drop. But Miller points out that since Wagner coming on, there was that, little back and forth about introducing pay to win scenarios of time accelerants for experience bonuses that you could buy. And Miller's claiming that his sources are stating that Wagner's time with Crystal will end with Marvel's Avengers. So starting there, I think it's pretty clear that this game, any semblance of a comeback it had, rested on management, and that management was ill-equipped.
Well, just horrible things to read, and it's always so baffling to me, people putting things out in the public like that, as if it's not going to come out and bite them in the ass. Like, first of all, don't be a bad person. Secondly, don't be a bad person online, because it will come back to you. So that's a lesson for everyone, to just watch what you post. I feel like I learned that like in middle school.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. You and I, we're young folk,
True.
We are borderline Gen Z.
Yeah. I
So
guess
we've
we
been-
learned
we've
we
grown up with
learned
that.
these skills growing up, I suppose.
Yeah, I played a computer. I think I talked to you about this on this podcast. I played a computer game that taught me how to not get kidnapped online when I was in middle
There
school.
you go. But yeah, I think aside from that sort of more important thing, the other aspect of him sort of stepping down from like the public aspect of Crystal Dynamics is he was kind of the only person really championing this game, like in a public perspective at least. So from Crystal Dynamics, so there's really no cheerleader of this game anymore at the moment.
It sure ain't
And
us.
no, and not like it was like that was that helpful for the game, because it's been in a lull for quite some time. So that's just another kick for this game.
Yeah. And in Miller's write-up, he also goes into talking about how Crystal Dynamics' proprietary foundation engine, which they've been using for an incredibly long time, was like falling apart at the seams with this game and pushing it for an online game, which is partly the reason we're seeing them shift to Unreal 5 for the next Tomb Raider game. This is the last game, supposedly, that Crystal will ever use their proprietary engine on, which I feel like we're hearing this out of every major studio this generation, that like CD Projekt Red is moving on from Red Engine. I know a lot of people haven't been embracing Unreal. I know Kojima is using Decima for Death Stranding, but I did see that he's using Epic's Unreal 5 metahuman stuff for the character inserts now instead of just the scanning they used beforehand. So like Unreal is everywhere. So, just lack of resources from having to onboard new people who don't know how Crystal's engine works, and then it just seems like this game was a bit too ambitious for the reality of the situation, which we kind of expected.
Yeah, and to keep that up as a ongoing game with all that as well.
Yeah, that too. So when you read through this piece, what is your reaction, I guess, to some of these explanations, and what is your insight into the future? Because Miller does give us a bit of an idea about the 3 to 5 year plan. We're approaching 3 years, so contractually things might be, good to go now. But what does Jack Martin think of all this?
Yeah, and do we want to get into the no plans for content in 2024 as part
Yeah,
of this?
throw that in here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I think is my biggest takeaway is, as Miller's being told, there's no plans for content in 2024. So, I mean, that makes perfect sense, because I think the alarm bells kind of rang towards the beginning of this year when there was really no communication from Crystal after Spider-Man. Pretty much, like, any sort of major updates or anything, we really didn't get until Jane. Like, we got like quality of life updates and things like that nature in the spring, I suppose, and then Jane came in the summer, and then now Bucky's kind of like the biggest thing. Well, there was that mission earlier in the fall, but now Bucky in the cloning lab is the next thing. So there's been like, what, 3 pieces of bigger news this year, which is not great compared to last year, which last year was a deluge of content compared to this year. So I think we kind of were expecting a similar trajectory in 2023, and nothing in 2024. So that kind of tracks.
Yeah. Miller does throw in a bit of his own thoughts here as well, which kind of align where what my view has been since the Embracer purchase, where Embracer got Crystal Dynamics. From the track record we've seen so far, because the deal officially went through in September, and from the speculation angle of it, we don't know for sure, but it was assumed that the whole contractual content stuff that they had left to ship that could have caused this game to be shuttered once the purchase went through had released already. And then we have this now with Bucky and Cloning Lab, which Cloning Lab was a carryover, but Bucky was never promised before that purchase. So on that front, the fact that Embracer is getting Avengers with a foundation that technically isn't solid, but I feel like this is a situation where if you had the budget, which Embracer does, you could brute force it, bring on a team, train them, and then this is just their game they work on. If Embracer wanted to, that is absolutely kind of maybe less work than making a new game, because it's like there. You don't have to wait for the production time. It's just updates and new content. But are they going to continue that? Like you said, he's reporting currently, his sources are saying no plans for 2024. I'm not gonna hold my breath for that to change, but yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. But when we look at 2023, he does mention that there are a couple other things he's heard because there is that floating character of She-Hulk, which I've heard her voice lines. I listened to them, right? It was soft announced that she's coming to the game. So Miller's reporting that his sources said that She-Hulk was in active development in late 2021 and shelved when Wagner came in after War for Wakanda and he came on. So there are a couple other characters that are in flux right now. One of them being She-Hulk. The others, I believe, are Riri Williams, Shuri, and there was a fourth one. I think I lost it.
Ooh,
Yelena, maybe.
yeah.
So again, essentially, oh sorry, no, Captain Marvel, Shuri,
Yeah.
Riri Williams, and She-Hulk. So with the exception of Captain Marvel, and we did hear a lot that She-Hulk was going to be a unique character. Clones. So
I feel like I don't even know what 2023 looks like. I feel like they could be like, you know what, we're backing it in. Like Captain Marvel's on here, so maybe they ended out with not like an expansion, but her character drop and then maybe like wrap up the story. But I don't even know at this point. That seems like a lot of
yeah,
work for
it
it doesn't
does.
seem like there's too many people working on this game.
Yeah, especially when you look at what we've gotten, right? Because there has been characters, but the characters are again, I'm only judging this based off of footage I've seen, not game feel. Bucky looks like a Cap clone. Jane is kind of a Thor clone. She has her own ultimates, but like, and a few different animations for attacks, but like, functionally, you're doing the same thing. The only other major updates have been outfits. So like, if you have a team of like designers for that, I guess that's all that they've needed to get through this year. But yeah, I like a War for Wakanda sized expansion with Captain Marvel is I think the thing we've always expected, but especially now is not something I see feasibly happening.
No, that seems unreasonable to expect now.
Yeah, so maybe we get like a Spider-Man event quest and then a big boss fight and then a motion comic to wrap it up and that's the end. Maybe.
That's kind of what it seems like
So,
if we even get that.
yeah, that's a fair point because like we said 2023 is in flux, 2024 is absolutely nothing else. I did see a very funny tweet from Cameron Kennedy, one of the editors, that kind of funny, say like, really great to see Avengers committing to the same amount of content in 2024 that they've been doing so far.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. But for you, fan of this game, what's the feeling right now? Uh, is it peace? Is it sadness? Where are you at
it
emotionally?
it does feel like a long time coming in a way, where it's like, you know
Yeah.
what, I kind of just want this to happen. Like you see the signs, and it's like, all right, we need to wrap this up already. Just because like we've had this whole year, um, with really nothing substantial. I thought like when you look back at 2021, it's like, wow, that year had so much. From War for Wakanda to like the event stuff, which wasn't great, but it was fresh at the time and not recycled, and Spider-Man and things like that. Hawkeye, even like that stuff was all great, and well, some of it was great, some of it was fine, but we just haven't really only gotten a couple things this year, and it doesn't help that we haven't really heard from the team too much, and we don't. I think the biggest part was we didn't really know expectations for this year. Like we didn't get the roadmap or anything like that.
Yep.
That Paul Tassi was promised at the end of 2021.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, that's sad. So that's kind of the biggest thing is we haven't really known how to temper our expectations for quite a while now. So that's been tough.
Yeah, I think you went into this year the smartest, right? Because I was very hopeful. I think back in like March, let's say, and I remember early episodes this year. You were like, I don't think we'll even really get anything this year," and I think that was the right mindset to have, even though that we did get some cloned characters, because I started to get on board with you around summer of like I don't think we're getting much, but yeah, I've put a lot of time into this game. We've put a lot of time and energy into this show because of the game. Obviously, it existed before the game, but the game brought it back. Uh, I'm not really sad. I'm ki- I'm kind of with you of just like yeah, let's just wrap it up. Let's finish this thing, you know. To the point of I don't have the game installed currently. I don't really have much motivation to play Bucky like you either. I do want to do the cloning lab, but like,
That's like 10 hours of work to get there.
yeah, and then for what? You
A
know?
mediocre mission, probably.
And then a Captain Marvel maybe expansion. Like if it's because we were texting about this a little bit earlier. Like when they put out their final thing, I will be there for it.
For sure.
I owe them that, and they owe me that, honestly. But everything else in between at this point, it's like it's not like something like, Destiny where when there's a season going on and okay, at the end of the season it's going to reset your progress in terms of like your artifact that you get per season, like a battle pass essentially, but like with actual use to it. It's like, okay, well, there's going to be a new one next season. So why would I play this one? It's like, well, they have a lot of other incentives going on where there's a really cool story they're telling, or there is cool glamours for your gear, or any number of reasons that will get you in there to get your incremental. I think it's like 10 points of power per season, which, get a new power level cap at expansions. But you could see that as pointless. But I do think they incentivize it well enough. You know, there was a really great video that Kyle Bossman did in our break, and it was centered on God of War because he saw like a credit in Ragnarok's credits that was called like let me find the thing. Player investment design.
Mm.
And he sourced that back to a posting from Bungie for Halo Reach.
Ooh,
And it's a
interesting.
very interesting video that talks about like that sort of thing that Destiny did that this game chased in terms of the Diablo-ness of you're getting addicted, you want to see the numbers go up and all that stuff. So I think this game just does not have that, and we've known that for a long time. And putting characters out, knowing that there is no player investment reason, feels gross to say that because it's like, yeah, I'm being manipulated to play this game more, but at the same time, it's like, why would I if it's dead? You know?
Yeah, and you mentioned this like not having that sort of framework that Destiny or other games like that have. And it's very true. Like there's no like horde mode, there's no PvP mode that makes even a game like Apex Legends, which for a while was just, battle royale, and same with Fortnite. Um, you're doing the same thing, but each match is so drastically different from the last that it's new every time you jump into it. And you're running down the same hallways doing the same exact missions over and over again in Marvel's Avengers, where you don't have like even a horde mode we've talked about would have gone so far. I'm not sure how PvP would have worked in this, but even that idea would have made this game added like such a dynamic layer to it, which it just never ended up having.
Yeah, if you want a good Marvel multiplayer PvP experience, I would say play Fortnite, where they have
True.
characters and some items that give you those characters' abilities, and then you can just fight each other. Like, it's out there. I just think that was always beyond this game's scope in almost every way you look at it. Like, if there were to be a new Marvel ARPG, because that's what this is. It's Diablo over the shoulder in terms of what you're playing this game for, which is loot and gear. If there was a new one announced in a week, right, I would be excited for it because I do think a Marvel ARPG can work, and Avengers had all the makings to make it work, and it did for a bit. But yeah, it just feels really mismanaged when you look back at it, I think.
For sure. But we were crazy enough to host a podcast about this game for 2 years, so
Yes.
it worked in some regard.
For listeners, the podcast is not ending if this game shits out.
No.
We got other Marvel stuff to talk about. Like I said, there's plenty of games, plenty of MCU in the pipeline. You know, that thing's never going to stop. So
Imagine Excelsior 1.0,
yeah,
if you will.
exactly. But
2019.
3.0.
Yeah, 3.0.
So, any other thoughts on Avengers? I'm sure we will continue to report on the sinking ship as it slowly sinks. But
No, it just makes so much sense. If this was a report and it's like there's so much cooking up in 2023 and 2024, I would be very surprised. But this just, yep, makes sense to me.
if Miller came out and the tone was the opposite, being like there's so much coming, would you be excited?
I wouldn't know how to feel. I'd feel very conflicted.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be excited. Like, because it's been so long
Yeah.
since War for Wakanda, which I would say is like the last great thing. Spider-Man I like in the game, but War for Wakanda was really impressive, I think, comparatively.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
there was nothing since then, and then they're like, wait till you see what's coming in a year, I'd ask, what is the point, I think, you know?
No, you're right. You're right.
But that's it for Marvel's Avengers this week. We'll see if anything develops in the future. I'm curious if they make a statement in the coming weeks, but I don't see why they would. But we'll see what the future holds. Meanwhile, though, give it up for a great Marvel game. Won an award last night. Marvel Snap. Best mobile game at the Game Awards 2022.
Hell yeah.
Congratulations.
Well deserved. What else was it going up against?
That is a good question.
Nothing of repute. I'm kidding.
I
I honestly
oh,
don't even
Diablo
remember.
Immortal. Diablo Immortal was on there.
Was that the one everyone was furious about like years ago?
Yeah, you guys have phones, don't you? Like
Oh,
that thing?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But
And
that
then-
ended up being a good game, apparently.
I think it depends on who you ask,
Gotcha.
because I think I listened to the Friends Per Second episode about Diablo Immortal, and they were talking about, they were like, it's good up until a certain point, and then it turns into the worst monetized nightmare you've ever seen in your life.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, Marvel Snap, shout out for having a good monetization setup to it. Admittedly, I haven't played it really much since the last time we talked about it, but it's one of my favorite experiences I've had this year, personally.
Yeah. I also really have not played it all too much. Like, I've played it cumulatively, like maybe 1 to 2 hours. But it's great, and I totally get it.
And they've been making a lot of strides to weed out whatever small monetization issues there were. Like, they announced they're going to add like a bunch of new cards that are going to be completely free for people to get, and I think they already did add a bunch. So yeah, Marvel Snap, game to watch, in the future.
For sure. And I just love how there can be so many different types of Marvel games. Like, you got Fortnite,
Yeah.
which is like, the action figures Marvel game, and you got your card game in Marvel Snap. It's great.
I agree. And speaking of, another Marvel game has released since the last time we spoke, Marvel's Midnight Suns, which I think we talked about impressions on the last episode because I listened to Greg Miller's and he was down on it. So I was expecting that this was going to be a stinker. And then I guess he was in the minority because people are saying that this is a 10 out of 10. It's a game of the year contender for them. It's fantastic. What's your vibe on this? I know strategy is not really your bag when it comes to gaming, but you've seen a lot of these impressions like I have, right?
Yes. This is not something I'm going to pick up anytime soon. I will certainly check it out if it eventually comes to like Game Pass or PS Plus or something like that. Um, it's not my type of genre, so that's kind of what is pushing me away from it. I was very surprised though when this and Callisto Protocol came out like that same day, and the reviews
Yeah.
were like completely the opposite of what I was expecting, and I was a very confused consumer because I was going to get Callisto Protocol, and then I got like mixed to negative reviews, and I was not planning on getting this game, and still I'm not, and it got like mixed to positive reviews. So it was a weird day on December 2nd.
I don't think I've ever had a faster 180 on a game in my life than Callisto Protocol.
Yeah, that was a big nope.
Yeah, which is quite unfortunate. But yeah, Midnight Suns, I'm with you. I like strategy games, and from conversations I've had with a friend of mine who works in game dev, he's very much into the game. And I asked him, because he put a ton of time in already, I was like, hey, I don't like cards. I'm not the Slay the Spire guy. Would I still like this? And he said that similar to what happened with Neon White earlier this year, where I was initially turned off by that game because it's like, oh, you use cards to like do your stuff. It's kind of just a way of presenting it. Like it does not feel deck buildery, which was my big concern. So yeah, I intend on picking this up and checking it out. Eventually, I'm not in a huge rush to. I think probably a nice sale, I'll check it out.
Yeah,
But like you said, it feels good that Marvel can explore a bunch of different genres and it can work out.
for sure. It would
So
be really boring if every game was third person action.
yeah, you should send that memo over to Jim Ryan. There are some other things going on in the world of Marvel outside of games. I'll start with this because it's just really an announcement. 12/13, Sacred Day, birthday of Taylor Swift and my lovely
Oh,
girlfriend. Spider-Verse 2 footage releasing. Tease with a picture. Are you excited for this?
very excited. Very excited. Especially like there's so much news about, and we've already seen in previous trailers of the animation just being like
Yeah.
completely off the chain in this movie, as if it wasn't already in the previous movie. But they're gonna
Yeah.
go like through so many different dimensions and things like that, multiverses, if you will, and that will present new art styles. So, oh man, I'm just excited for the treat of the visual treat of the trailer. Honestly,
I agree. It's gonna also just be very comfortable to, I think, go back to a movie theater and sit down and watch Miles. You
oh yeah,
know, I love Miles. That's gonna be a great time.
very comforting character. And last time,
Yeah.
as I've described probably many times on the show, I was like falling asleep in the theater when I saw Spider Verse for the first time. So I'm excited to be awake, hopefully, when this movie eventually comes out next year.
Yeah, I'm quite excited for it, and we will get to see some footage of it pretty soon. But you know what we did get to see footage of
Yeah, what's that?
via CCXP, which I think is a Brazilian Comic Con.
I think that's the letters for the USSR, though, actually.
Is
No,
it?
it's CCCP.
Oh, okay.
I'm just fucking with
Man, you could have told me anything right there, and I would have believed
you.
you. There was Disney pulled up to this thing, kind of just out of nowhere on my radar. This was like how CinemaCon started out
Right.
a while ago. But we got a new trailer, first official trailer for the public, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yes.
What do you think of this trailer?
It's a great trailer. It makes me nervous. It makes me very nervous because
Yeah.
someone's probably going to die. At least one person. And it's probably Rocket.
Yeah. Um, the cynic in me says they will kill the most expensive actor, who is Chris Pratt in that case.
Hmm.
Now, strictly talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, love Star Lord, Peter Quill, one of my favorite characters in the MCU. That would be very sad. If any of them die, I'm gonna be sad. I cried in that trailer. Honestly, it got me. Mainly because of that tone that you're talking about of like, yeah, this is I mean, the trailer I think literally says like face the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at least one person's dying. I think they want you to think Rocket, and I think Rocket's a fair guess because it looks like this is a Rocket centric story where you see flashbacks to him, you see him getting a friend. I think the rumor for a while ago was that he was getting a love interest, and it was an animal who was, mutated like him. So it makes sense that it would be Rocket. Excuse me. I also think Dave Batista is probably asking to be killed like Harrison Ford was for Han Solo,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest.
Um,
So,
I I think it'd be fantastic. It seems like they're all kind of like done with the Guardians at this point. Like not in a bad way, just being like, you know what, we've done our thing. Um, it'd be great if they can just walk off into the sunset. And I think that would be pretty fitting for the Guardians, honestly.
yeah, I do too. Because they've gone through a lot. It's both of them are at like the top of my personal MCU ranking because I love them so much. And they are Infinity War for me in a lot of ways. So for this one specifically, I have a lot of expectations for it that I think will be delivered. It's just I trust James Gunn ending this because I don't think he's failed me with these characters so far. I don't know if you feel differently. I know I like Volume 2 a lot more than you do, but
No, I like Volume 2. I think it's a little self-indulgent in the James
sure.
Gunness of things. That's kind of my only thing with it. It's a little too much. But there have been movies since that I think are far worse in that regard, like Love and Thunder, in my opinion, is like wow, Taika really made a Taika movie. But no, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. I think this has a really great shot at being perhaps the best trilogy in the MCU.
Yeah, I think it is that title to lose for Guardians, honestly. Like it feels like it should just be a slam dunk. Because it has a lot of the charm and like the bit with Drax like throwing the ball at the kid was funny. But it very clearly, as we talked about, is setting up something emotional. Gamora's here. It looks like they might be treating it like a lovers with amnesia sort of thing, which is probably going to be sad. But yeah, I'm excited. It's next May after Ant Man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Is it, where does it fall on your most anticipated for Marvel currently?
Who I would say pretty high. It's this, then Ant Man. I would say. Trying to think of what's even next year. The Marvels.
Uh huh.
I'm blanking
I don't
on
know
it.
what shows are next year. Loki? Is Loki next year?
That sounds right. I would say this would probably be number one of all the things that are coming out next year, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think this will feel like it's marking an end of an era, similar to Endgame did, where a lot of the core elements of the MCU are just going to be gone, right? Because for the longest time, I always looked at it as the MCU were two things. It was the Avengers and the Guardians, and Avengers are kind of around still, but like I'm sure they're gonna try and repurpose something with like Adam Warlock, and I know Palm Clementif did an interview recently and said it's not like they're viewing it as like, oh, we're all done, but like it's gonna be different for sure after this. So I'm sure the name Guardians of the Galaxy will stick around,
Yeah,
but it's the same way the Avengers are sticking around.
definitely.
So, but yeah, Adam Warlock was in here. What do you think of that?
I don't quite know how to feel about Adam Warlock yet. I don't think he looks really good, in my opinion, so far. He literally just looks like that actor was spray painted with gold. So I mean
Yeah.
that's all we can really go off right now. So that's kind of where I'm at. What about you?
I mean, none of the gold people in 2 looked good, right?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat. I think it's going to be fun to see Will Poulter. Because I only know him from comedic stuff, so it looks like he's playing an antagonist to some degree. So I'm curious to see when that switch gets flipped, because I imagine he's going to be on the team by the end or something. But yeah, if this is a passing of the torch in a way to sort of him picking up as a leader, that could be interesting. But yeah, gonna be a emotional theater experience for sure next May.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, are there any other thoughts you have about Guardians 3, the state of the MCU, the state of the Guardians moving forward?
I'm excited for Phase 5 to kick off pretty soon with Ant-Man and then this. Like that those are pretty back-to-back big movies coming up, so we'll have a nice holiday break here and then pick up with Ant-Man in February, right?
Yeah, because we're kind of in a Marvel down season currently, right? Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
for a bit. I mean, it's weird because I feel like the off seasons in the past have been super long, and now it's like a month and a half, kind of, you know? But
I think we were in desperate need of a break from Marvel.
oh yeah, big time. I, if you'll allow a tangent quickly, I was sick. I'm still getting over it. I didn't have coffee for a week. I had a big iced coffee from Dunkin' my first day I was feeling good. That was a mistake. It was also the day that the Avatar impressions came out from press. And then the internet was reeling from that because they were like, how can this be good? And I was just like on TikTok, I was getting people being like, I'm so upset because this movie's good apparently. And I was like, I don't understand why people doubt James Cameron. And I was up until like 4 a.m. because of this caffeine jack.
Oh man.
And I was reading some Cameron stuff, and I was like, maybe I stopped watching Marvel after Guardians 3 so religiously because I'm tired. And then I woke up the next day, and I was like, you know what? No, I'm fine.
I got to rewatch that Avatar. In fact, I might do it after
you do?
we record.
Oh, Jack, please do.
I don't know if you're going to like the way I feel about that movie.
I don't care because at least you're going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
That's all I can ask. And I'm sure as a fellow enjoyer of blockbusters, you will see the influence this thing had and how it surprisingly holds up in a few ways. I'm not saying it's like the greatest movie ever made, you know? But like I think there's some merit there, you know?
No, I get it. I also want to rewatch Titanic.
Sure, yeah.
I want to see that movie again. The last time I saw Titanic was on 2 VHS tapes.
Yeah,
So.
I've seen that brick before. I think it's in this house somewhere.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's so funny. But anyway, that's it for Excelsior this week. Jack, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter at FascinatedJack. Hey, that's still around, which is nice.
Yeah.
In some ways it's pretty horrible. But that's where you can follow me. We have our Arkham Knight Long Play Club completed, and I believe that's out. That's out, Christian, right?
I am putting it out this weekend, so by the time you're listening to this, it should be either out or out within 24 hours.
There you go. We we certainly have opinions on that game, so you can check that out soon on youtube.com/joeclicks. But what about you, Christian?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter and TikTok at Chun2D2. You can find the show on youtube.com/joyclicks alongside the Long Play Club in its podcast feed. The playlist for each individual show you can find there. If you want on audio services, you can find it in the description of every episode on YouTube, or go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Look up Excelsior, Marvel's Avengers podcast, or JoyClicks, you will find us. Rating and reviewing is an easy way to help the show if you enjoy it. And if you want to support the show further, you can do so by going to patreon.com/JoyClicks at the $1 and $5 tiers. Much like Aaron Easton and Jose Garcia, you can get producer credit on every show we produce at the $5 tier. So thank you very much. And that is Excelsior. We will be back with something to talk about because it's not going to be Avengers in the rest of this year. I can tell you that much.
Ooh, maybe a Guardians of the Galaxy holiday discussion.
Yeah, we got to do an episode on that for sure.
That would be fitting.
Absolutely. Until then, though, Excelsior.